Obviously, we have more to say about season 1, episode 13, Man's Best Friend. So let's resume part 2, happening right now.
Rachel and the kids are all audibly flabbergasted all at once when they try to come up with an answer to Carl's curiosity about what we know as the doggy treats. They all exclaim, "Carl!" as they notice that he's about to try this treat. Or technically, Rachel is the one that exclaims, "Carl!" And then maybe Judy and Laura and Eddie, "Dad!" But too late. Carl is just going ahead because he will eat literally anything. Same for me. You know, you get to that stage where your belly becomes a part of your personality. You will almost eat either toilet paper or Scotch tape if it was covered in barbecue sauce.
Oh my God, John. I just threw up in my mouth. That sounds gross.
My goal is to make you throw up at least once every episode. I think our last recap, I made you throw up because I described like a combination of vodka, Fireball, and Twisted Teas, was it?
Yeah. Oh, gross. Oh my gosh. Now I can only imagine toilet paper covered in barbecue sauce.
My mission is to turn this from the delicious recap to the nauseous recap, Family Matters.
Oh, I can go for that.
All right. Carl chews for a little on the treats, then delightfully says that these are good and asks what are they? And as he's about to try another one, the family cries out all at once. They try to stop him. Rachel leaps for the treats before Carl can eat another one. Rachel claims with her wide smile that this is just a little snack that she picked up at the health food store. Carl physically takes the treats as he encourages Rachel and the kids to try them because they are quite delicious, as the delicious recap, Andrew Vandertunt.
Mm-hmm. They're delicious. They got a little taste of doggy nutrition.
Mm-hmm. Rachel, Laura, and Judy, in clear hesitation, decide to oblige with Carl's request. Carl asks if something's wrong as he notices their hesitation. Rachel attempts to continue with the act and claims that nothing is wrong and proceeds to demonstrate that by very reluctantly shoving the treat into her mouth along with Laura and Judy. Again, Thelma Hopkins, great face acting. You clearly see that she is just absolutely mortified by having to eat a dog treat.
They all did really well with this. They look disgusted all at the same time.
Now, side note, those dog treats kind of also reminded me of like the frosted animal cookies that I used to have as a child. Remember, because I think they still have them in the stores. Animal crackers, animal cookies, whatever the fuck they are. And I think they still have the frosted kind. And when Rachel picked it up to eat it, I thought I saw like some whiteness in there that kind of looked like a frosted animal cookie.
I'm with you there. It looked like an animal cookie, either the frosted ones, or I was thinking, you know those holiday cookies you get that have the different colors on them and the like buttercream? That's kind of what it looked like to me too.
Oh, interesting. And then Carl, delightfully eager to know from the three how great the treats are. Rachel, Laura, and Judy all say in sync, and clearly they're faking it when they all go,
They do so good as a trio here.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, they are basically the wacky sitcom kids version of Destiny's Child right now. Carl said, and Rachel's Beyonce. Let's be clear. Rachel's Beyonce.
Yeah, Rachel's Beyonce in this moment. Laura is Michelle and Judy is Kelly.
I knew you would do that because of your bias for Judy, because we all know Michelle Williams, not as memorable as Kelly Rowland. So yes, I knew you would do that.
Because Judy is memorable and we all love us some Kelly Rowland. I mean, I love Michelle Williams too, don't get me wrong, but I love me some Kelly Rowland the same way I love Judy.
And then Carl says goodnight to the family, then orders Eddie to clean up his room because it smells like an animal lives in here. Stinky-faced Carl then exits and closes the door behind him. And once he does, Rachel, Laura, and Judy make quite the performance out of spitting out the dog treats in disgust, as if Carl could not hear them while he's walking away. It's like, wow, they're really making it loudly clear that they hate these treats.
Carl just thinks it's more Bobby Brown getting sung.
I guess. Oh, is that the source of Bobby Brown's talent? Is that like, oh, if you want to sing like him, all you have to do is sound like you're spitting out dog treats in disgust.
We'll use that for the sitcom, yes.
I love that. Eddie, who I guess I didn't notice until now that he was also eating the treats. He lives up to his dumb oblivious moment. He says like, "Oh, hey, my dad was right about the treats." being good. And then, this boy just proceeds to just take the treats out of the bag and pour the rest of them down his throat. And I suspected that this would be a great way to end the scene. And indeed, they did end the scene that way. It was wonderful.
It was perfect. This was a really good scene. I enjoyed this episode so much, and this was a good scene.
Yes. We go to scene 3, exterior day shot of Winslow House, as we hear Laura ask Harriet if she told Dad about Mickey. Cut to the kitchen with Harriet, Laura, Judy, Eddie. As Harriet tells Laura, she told Carl 100 times. And got another fashion side note for you, Andrew. I think I was asking if Harriet had a dark pink spotted dressy tracksuit outfit going on. I know we had made some mention of a tracksuit before. Were we getting accurately some tracksuit energy here?
It was kind of like the athleisure tracksuit look, but then it also looked like it could have been hospital scrubs. And I was just like, okay, this is an interesting look for Harriet. And then what is Laura wearing in the scene? Does she have something kind of vaguely similar? Because I know they're both in pink at one point.
So I actually had a note, Laura, Judy, they seem to be wearing, like, even though they're different colors, it seems like the same kind of designed turtleneck. I don't know if you remember that. So Laura had I think it was Laura who had a pink turtleneck, and Judy had a blue one. And it looked like it was like, oh, both of them are wearing turtlenecks by George. Like, it just had that same design to it.
They did look alike. And I even have it in my notes here. I'm like, there's a lot of pink and blue in this scene. And I feel like it was that. I'm like, oh, are they channeling the fact that they're both Harriet's daughter? Because Judy's kind of blue is kind of reminiscent of that velour skirt that we got in the earlier scene. So I'm like, what are they doing with their colors here?
I don't know, but maybe the pink and blue implies that we have a dog/gender reveal party happening.
That could be it.
Oh, we have a new dog, but also Harriet's pregnant again.
Like, it's a bundle of joy, Carl. Here you go.
Yeah, double reasons for Carl to panic. Oh, wow, here's a dog in the house that I don't want. And also, oh, my wife is pregnant with another child that we probably can't afford because my wife got laid off not too long ago.
So now Carl, they're doing it good. Get pregnant and then be like, oh, we got a dog. And then you're like, but I'm pregnant. So that's way bigger for us to deal with. Just let the dog stay.
So the dog is a welcome distraction. So so I think you're implying that because Harriet might be pregnant and Carl is like, oh my God, we have another baby. Maybe that'll distract him from the fact that there's a dog in the house.
Exactly. That'll distract him. And then Harriet's going to be like, oh no, false alarm. I'm not pregnant. Boom. Now the dog's there. Carl can't get it to leave.
No, problem solved. This could have been a whole other alternate storyline. I love this. I love this. And then Eddie, I think this was definitely a fashion choice on Eddie's part. He has like a bland Carhartt-ish jacket, another weird sweatshirt underneath, various animated dotted things. What were they? I have no idea.
It was a busy, like shirt sweater thing he had on. I could not tell what I was looking at. I didn't like this outfit for him.
And going back to Judy, not about the fashion. So when I paused like the beginning of this scene to take some notes, I noticed that like when you pause it, you see Judy and it looks like she's just staring at her orange juice while seated on the table in fascination, as if it's like, oh my God, it's like this hypnotic, beautiful thing. What's going on?
Judy was stoned. That's what was happening. She was stoned, or she was just super hungry. And she's like, I never get food because they always forget about me up there upstairs. And now I finally have food.
Yeah. That's why Jamie liked this episode, because it highlights how she was mistreated on the show by not being fed prop food. And also maybe when she was a youngin', she tried weed for the first time.
Possibly. We never know. But there is a dog involved, so anything could happen.
Yeah, that's true. Laura asked her mom what Dad said, and Harriet says nothing because Carl was asleep. Carl cries out to Harriet from upstairs, and Harriet, in a panic, quietly tells Laura to hide Mickey, who I just realized was in this scene, Andrew, because like when I pause for notes, like on Hulu, where I'm watching, there's like this black mush that happens on the screen near where the video player is, and Mickey was positioned there. So if you pause the scene, it looks like it's just the human family members and Mickey is not there, but he actually is there, just on the floor.
Yeah, he's hiding out. And I watched it on Hulu when I was rewinding. I didn't see it because the overlay covers them, but I know what you're talking about.
That's a beautiful word. I love overlay rather than black mush. Black mush sounds not so appealing.
It's just a little mush on your screen. Don't worry.
Yeah. Black mush all of a sudden sounds like the fucking like offensive blackface shit that white people used to do back in the 1920s when they were performing on stage. So no.
So no black mush.
Yeah. As Laura is hiding Mickey in a kitchen closet, Judy and especially Eddie, they're unnecessarily scrambling around, I think, trying to find an activity to do when I feel like that doesn't really matter because like as long as Carl doesn't see a dog, then you can just stay where they are. So maybe Darius and Jamie just felt like they had to do some like, forced energetic actor business. It could have been instructed by Rich Correll. I have no idea.
I feel like it had to be an instruction just because I was watching and I was like, why are they moving? They just have to hide the dog. You can just be normal in the kitchen. But then let's think about the Winslow's kitchen. There's always something happening in that kitchen.
As Laura takes a seat at the table to, quote, act casual, end quote, Carl comes down the stairs. Oh, I think you had a moment about Carl's fashion. This is a fashion moment for Carl where I was just like, what the fuck? He had like a mixture of like a referee and a European soccer player polo shirt. It was like this gray and dark blue striped thing. I was like, yes. Yeah, that's a choice, Carl.
As soon as I saw him come out, in my notes here, I have it in just scribble. He looks like a FIFA referee for football. I was like, oh, you look like a football referee out here, and I don't understand who's in the World Cup right now.
Now, when you say football, do you mean international soccer? Because I think foreign countries, they refer to soccer as football. Or do you mean American football?
I don't mean American soccer. American soccer is terrible, and that's with like the Bills and all of them. I like football. So they were like football.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. Carl puts on a fake, polite, goofy smile to the family to suggest that he might know something they're trying to hide, but turns out he shows them his very ripped up slipper and he wants to know what happened to it. Harriet hesitantly tells Carl that it just wore out. You found that moment funny.
I thought this moment was so funny because that slipper looks like it got put through a paper shredder. And I was like, what dog do you have that can do this to a slipper?
Yeah. A very rambunctious, energetic dog, clearly. And I love that, it just wore out is the only thing Harriet could come up with. Yes, because you wear slippers for like 25 years and then they just get to a point where they just magically rip up into shreds.
I mean, they are those black dad slippers or like black granddad slippers because my granddads on both sides of the family had those exact same slippers. And then doesn't my dad, once he gets older, buy the same kind of slippers? So I was like, these slippers are industrial proof. How did we get here? And why would Harriet think just saying, oh, they wore out would be the answer?
So are you talking about those kind of, is it those like slip-ons where they show the heel, where like the front part of the feet is covered and then it shows the heel? I hate those. I hate and love those slippers. I both want to wear them and I also want to detest them.
It's because you're becoming an older black man, Jai. You want to wear these. Like, and then if you go to a cookout and you see somebody in the like sandal version of those, they can cook. They better be on that grill because they can cook. Or if you have like a black granddad and he has those slippers that he puts on when he gets up from his chair and he's cooking, the food's gonna be good. So those slippers are iconic.
Black dad / granddad vibe, those slippers. I like that. So Carl says the slipper looks like a wild animal got a hold of it. Laura tries to help the stalling by suggesting to her dad that it could have been Little Richie because Carl should know how he likes to chew on things. Carl is understandably not buying that because this was definitely not the work of somebody with just one tooth. After an awkward pause from the family, we hear a scratch from the closet and Carl looks around used and asks what that noise was. Harriet pretends to not know what he's talking about, and Carl insists he heard a noise that sounded like it came from the laundry room, which I thought was just like a casual closet. But then I forgot. There's been past episodes where you see some laundry being taken out of there.
It took me a minute to realize. I was like, oh, that was a laundry room before. And I'm like you.
Yeah, and to reference to when Mama Winslow and Harriet were strangely like sorting their clothes in the kitchen, now I understand why. Because it's like, oh, the laundry room is right there. So rather than, I guess, walk like 53 miles upstairs to a proper place to store your clothes, it's just going to be like, oh, okay, the kitchen's right here. Let me just sit down and sort my clothes as I cover them in fried chicken remains.
Yeah, that is my thing. Folding clothes in the kitchen, I just feel like they're going to get the smell of food or get food in them. Why would you do that? But it does make sense with their laundry room being right off of the kitchen. So I get it.
It's convenient. Harriet claims she did not hear anything and asked the kids if they heard anything. Eddie, Laura, and Judy in succession, like the synchronized weird kids they are, they respond in their own way that they didn't hear anything. No. And then another notable noise is heard. Quick pause before I found out that, I mean, I thought this line from Eddie was very funny because you hear the noise happen and then there's a beat and Eddie's like, oh, I didn't hear that either.
I love Eddie in the scene because his timing was perfect.
Carl has had it, walks toward the laundry room door to find the source of the noise, but Harriet blocks him and says he doesn't need to go in there. Carl asks, why not? Harriet says it's no special reason and just a whim that she has. Carl orders Harriet to step aside, and Harriet oddly agrees to Carl's demand very quickly. Do you think that they could have given a little bit more time for Harriet to stall, or were you like me? Because I thought it was like, oh, okay, I guess Harriet just doesn't want to keep trying.
They could have given Harriet a good line like, Carl, you don't even clean the jelly stains out of your own clothes, so why do you need to go into the laundry room? Something. We could have got like a cute little zinger to maybe slow him down a little bit more. Yeah. Like, give us something.
Exactly. Carl, you're not going to find anything in that laundry room other than your leftover donut powder.
That right there would have been perfect. That would have been perfect.
Carl opens the door and walks, and out walks Mickey, covered in either, what is it, a flowery blanket or a long flowery kitchen rag? I was trying to find out what that was.
I thought it was a blanket or a rug. Like one of the two. I was like, is this a towel, a blanket, a rug? Whatever it was super cute.
It seems, I don't know, it seems a little flimsy, light, or delicate to be a rug. I don't know. It could have been, but yeah, I got more like blanket and kitchen rag vibes.
I'm going with blanket or kitchen because like it was very flimsy, but covered the dog. I don't know. This was just the cutest thing for me ever. I find it so cute when dogs have blankets on.
Carl confusingly and stunningly observes this hidden moving thing. He takes a blanket/rag off to reveal what I'm just realizing now at this moment, a very furry, ungroomed Mickey. Laura acts surprised and says, oh, look, a dog. Music plays as Laura's facial expression turns awkward as Carl has his hands on hips and gives that facial expression of like, wow. Yeah, so this is what my family's been up to behind my back. And again, I'm getting a parallel from the body damage episode. Remember the lesson that the family was supposed to learn at the end of the episode from Carl? Hey, guys, when troubling things like my parade police car being ruined happens, don't be scared of me. Talk to me about it so we can work through it. The family acknowledges at the time that they learned the lesson of that, but we have the same exact thing through here. It's like, oh, okay, we're just going to hide a dog the whole time thinking that Carl is going to be Mr. like, rah. But like, no, he probably is going to be understanding.
I mean, Carl is like every black dad that doesn't want a dog in the house. They're like, no, you can't have a dog. You can't have a dog. So they were kind of afraid like, oh, he's just going to be the authoritarian and put his foot down. But we get pleasantly surprised.
We do. As we go into scene 4, exterior day shot of Winslow House, cut back to kitchen, where we're basically at the same spot with the same characters as the prior scene. A not so happy Carl asks Harriet what a dog is doing in the laundry room. Harriet, like a nervous, guilty child, says, his laundry? Oh, I mean, that dog is big enough where you could find... I mean, I feel like Mickey is big enough where he could do his own damn laundry.
He probably could. And I'm pretty sure you could teach a dog to do laundry. At least get it in the washer.
I brought up this theory to my wife, who obviously is going to turn me down because she knows about dogs more than I do. This is what she does for a living. I have a theory that if you could teach dogs to sit, stand, whatever, things like taking out the trash, doing the laundry, like, I feel like you have enough patience patience and enough time with them, it could happen.
Yeah, just do the things that they can't do since they don't have thumbs, and everything else the dog can do. Because I'm pretty sure there's a dog out there that can load a washing machine. I mean, dogs will carry stuff easily if you prepare it for them the right way. So you could teach a dog to do laundry.
Carl says Harriet's name in a stern parent tone because he wants an answer, and guilty, nervous child Harriet exclaims the dog followed the kids home from school. Carl exclaims to Harriet that she knows his rule about pets. Harriet acknowledges she knows the rule, but thinks maybe Carl would make an exception this time. Carl insists that a rule is a rule, but Harriet does not give up and says the poor dog needs a home. And then, of course, our superstar Judy making me chuckle with this line as she walks to her dad while holding the dog by the leash. Have a heart.
Very Christmas moment. I was like, oh, the Christmas bells are ringing.
I found it a very chuckle-worthy moment, but the audience didn't find that funny. The audience was, I guess, just taking it seriously.
They were, because this dog, and then you've got cute Judy next to the dog. You're like, darn, keep them both, Carl. Keep them both.
And Laura insists to her dad that Mickey is a really nice dog. Eddie agrees and says to his dad that Mickey has his eyes, which literally, I mean, if we took that literally, that would be very concerning because like dogs, they basically have dog eye or doll eyes. Dogs have doll eyes. So imagine Mickey's dog eyes on Carl. You would think that Carl is a regular Ray Charles.
I would look at him and I'm like, this is terrifying. Oh, don't look at me, Carl.
Annabelle Carl Winslow over here. Exorcist Carl Winslow over here.
He becomes the exorcist because he no longer can get into Die Hard because Die Hard is now international.
There you go. There you go. Your conspiracy theory storylines, they're brilliant. I love it. I love it. Carl is not budging still. He simply says, case is closed. The dog is not going to be staying. After a bit of awkward silence amongst the family, Rachel comes down the stairs, thinks Carl still doesn't know about Mickey when she says, oh, Carl, you brought home a dog. How wonderful. And, did you see, weird moment from Laura. Did you see Laura randomly roll her eyes and tap Judy on the wrist after that Rachel line?
I didn't remember that.
It was a weird choice. I think it was just a classic case of like, hey, I'm a good actor. I don't know what to do in this scene. So let me just do something that ultimately doesn't make sense. So
I wondered maybe there was a line that was there that maybe I edited out that we didn't know about.
It's possible. Harriet tells Rachel that Carl knows all about Mickey and doesn't want to keep him. Rachel responds bummingly and asks Carl if he likes dogs. Carl exclaims that he loves dogs. Rachel then asks Carl, why doesn't he want to keep Mickey then? Carl apparently has a very deep story to tell when he begins to explain that when he was 6, his father brought home this cute little Cocker Spaniel puppy. Is that like the sort of like old rich lady Beverly Hills kind of puppy that you put in the purse? Or is that a Chihuahua?
I think it is a Cocker Spaniel that's like a rich dog. Because I didn't Google it and I should have, but I imagine it's the little short stubby dog with the pointy ears. And it's like pretty furry. Is that the dog I'm thinking of?
No, that's actually, you know what? Maybe I'm not paying attention. Oh, so it's the dog with the long floppy ears.
Oh, and they're like furry, like they look like it looks like hair.
Pretty much, yeah. It looks like it almost looks like it's like downward long ponytails.
Okay, I know what dog we're talking about then.
Cute dog. Never mind, that's not the rich people dog. That is always the cute, depressed looking dog because their ears are down all the time. All right, so Carl explains that when he was 6, father brought home a cute little Cocker Spaniel puppy, and they went everywhere together. The puppy followed Carl to school every day and waited for him outside. And, oh, God, this made me think of like the most awfully emotional movie ever. Speaking of dogs waiting for their owners outside, did I tell you about that movie, Hachi, A Dog's Tale?
I did not watch that, but you have not told me that you watched it, so I need to know what you think. I've seen it. I've seen the trailers. I've seen this cute dog, and I have refused to watch it because I feel like something sad happens.
So if you don't want to bawl your eyes out like crazy, don't watch it. But if you are open-minded, open-hearted for a very emotional dog movie, I watched that with one of my dogs, Boomer, when I was still living in Albany, New York, and I was a fucking mess during the movie, after the movie for a while. So that's all I'll say. I think it might be still on Netflix with Richard Gere and whoever plays the dog. It's based on a true story from Japan. Go watch it if you are if you're open for a good cry. But if you don't want to be open for a good cry, then avoid it at all costs.
I want to watch it. I may check it out and tell you what I think. I saw it and I love Shiba Inus because the dog in there is Shiba. And it's
I think so.
it's super cute. And I'm like, I don't want to see anything bad happen. I'm still scarred from Old Yeller. So I'm just like, oh my God.
I still got to see Old Yeller. I know that's like one of those like legendary black and white dog things, like kind of like a Lassie that everybody has seen, but I have not seen it yet. So I got to go see it.
Read the book if you don't want to get emotional. The movie itself is emotional on its own. The book, it still goes the same way, but at least you're not looking at images of what's happening.
And Eddie tells his dad he has a question. And the question itself, classic dumb Eddie. I love it. Made me laugh. Why would your father follow you to school every day?
I thought that was brilliant.
And even better, the follow-up from Carl. Like he has that moment where he looks at his son like, what are you? And then after that beat, he just exclaims to Eddie, the dog followed me to school. Edward, the dog.
I feel like Carl was just like, I'm having an emotional moment here, and you are not listening to me, Eddie.
You are not helping. Eddie simply and genuinely says, oh, okay, got it. Because that's what dumb Eddie does. Carl claims that for 10 years, that little rascal puppy and him were inseparable, and he loved that dog more than anything. But then one day he got sick and died. Carl admits he was crushed, and for many weeks he'd walk to school looking behind him, thinking the puppy would be there. But of course, he wasn't. And then in comes Rachel with the very funny, dramatic Lucille Ball cry. And she emotionally says, oh my God, that's the saddest story I've ever heard. Which I found to be a good way to break the tension. Because, when you have a sad dog story like the one Carl tells, you got to have some laughter.
You do. You have to have a bit of laughter here. This was the moment where the episode took that turn for me where I'm like, whoa, we are talking about unaddressed grief is what I'm going to say. We have not talked about this unaddressed grief. And Carl's reaction is coming from a place of trauma that we have not talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right with you there. Harriet attempts to comfort Rachel. Carl says after that puppy's death, he swore he would never get close to a pet again. And then Rachel, continuing the drama, outrageously blowing her nose. Then Rachel notices Carl's look of like, really, woman, a bit much? And then apologizes. But hey, nonetheless, great comedic acting from Thelma Hopkins. I love it.
She really did. She is amazing in all the episodes we've seen. But this scene here, because it spoke so loudly to me, her facial expressions, everything she does, the over-exaggeration, she delivered it perfectly.
So it spoke loudly to you because you could understand the very animated emotion after losing a pet, or what do you mean?
I could understand the animated emotion, but I can also understand wanting to be the person to help break the tension in the room, where it's like, okay, we had this serious thing happen, but can we all just take a moment and just laugh for a second or something?
And ironically enough, sometimes it's the major depressing circumstance. Like, oh my God, this is so depressing that it makes me laugh. Like that it can be a way to break the tension. I found that like when your circumstance is so low, it's like, isn't this a fucking trip?
It is. It's one of those things where you just kind of look at, you're like, okay, everybody here is sad, but there's that one thing I'm just going to point out and it's going to help break the tension. We're going to laugh, but it's a respectful and loving laugh where it's like, okay, we're all laughing because we love you, but we also are laughing because we can't keep being sad.
And then, oh my God, what if the line that Harriet gives fucking makes me laugh. I'm curious about your thoughts about this one. Harriet just sassily comes out and says, Carl, that was 20 years ago. Get some therapy.
I screamed. It was such a good delivery of the line.
And possibly the first acknowledgement, maybe the only acknowledgement of therapy in Family Matters history.
This is the only acknowledgement of therapy that I can recall throughout the entirety of the series.
And going to your unaddressed grief point, I'm curious to hear more of your thoughts about this. I was just saying, like, yep, Harriet is speaking the truth because, like, look, I've lost a number of pets in my lifetime. And yes, given that experience, Harriet could have phrased the therapy thing a little bit more kindly. But especially if it's been 20 years, Carl. You just got to get to the point where you accept that pets come and go, and how they go is unfortunately out of our control. Now, if Carl simply just did not like having a pet in his house because of like, oh, too much fur and you got to feed him every day, blah, 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 like whatever, that's fine. That is your right. But if it's like, as you had mentioned, if it's literally based on underdressed grief, underdressed childhood trauma, it's like, buddy, maybe a therapy session might change that view of yours.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. Where I always take it as like when you have unaddressed grief, something like losing a pet. I've lost a pet before. I've had friends who have lost pets. If you just stop at the grief of losing the pet, and now every time you see a pet, you're like, no, I don't want them around because I don't want to get attached. All you're doing is essentially picking up a book, reading to the part that you love, and then putting it down and never coming back to it. While this whole other time, there's a whole other world that's in this book, and there's sequels and follows-ups that you can enjoy, but you're not willing to do it because you're not willing to address that this one book has an ending. And that's what I feel when people don't address something like that. So that's why the scene, when I saw it, I was like, ooh. And then it's kind of a read for myself, because I was that way when we lost our first dog. I was like, I don't ever want a dog again until I address the grief from losing a dog.
And you were how old when you had that unaddressed grief at the time?
This was when I was like 10. We had a dog, and I'm not going to say his name because apparently his name is not PC, but I loved that we called him the name that we called him. And it was just based on the dog's color. So, but we were kids and we just called this dog this name, and the dog died because he got sick. And he lasted a really long time. He was 6 years old when he passed. So it was like, okay, he had a good long life, but because he died, I was always like, no, I don't ever want to see dogs again, until I finally sat down with somebody and was like, I just don't want to get attached and watch something else that I love die again. And they're like, well, you can also love it. You don't just have to focus on the death.
Yeah, because like every living organism, pets, humans, we all die. We all die someday. Like it's just, unfortunately, it comes across as a bit naive to think that when you take in a pet, that you're not going to eventually get to that point where the pet passes on. It often happens before you do. You got to deal with that. It's just a part of life. When my dog Buddy died, and you knew Buddy, I told you about him. I mean, I fucking cried it out like crazy. Like literally seconds after my wife Tony had to put him down at the vet clinic that she works at, I cried my eyes out. It was a very depressing, tough night. And then over the course of the following week, it gradually went from like, oh God, this is tough emotionally, to, man, we had a good 4 fucking years together, and this was, the right decision for him. And I want to get another dog. Like I think once you get to that point where it's like, hey, pets are not around for long. It's a fact, and they're cute, and they deserve a great home, a great experience for the short time that they're here on Earth. Like, I think if you look at it from that perspective, it allows you to easier process when it is their rainbow bridge time. The fact that like, hey, like there are these creatures that have a very short time on this planet, and why not make it the best?
Exactly. I think there's a quote, and I don't remember who first said it, but I've heard it quite a few times, where for a dog, you are their best friend for the entirety of their life, even though they're only your friend for a portion of yours. So there's something about that I just always resonated with and loved, where I'm like, this creature who doesn't know what light is, possibly, or doesn't understand all the human things we have, I still get to have fun with them and be their best friend for the entirety of their life. And that's what makes it special.
I think I saw a quote along those same lines, where it's like, oh, like when you take in a pet, like they're a part of your world. To the pet, you have to realize that you're their world. Like you are like everything to them. So think of it that way. That really can affect how you choose to spend the, 10, 15 years, hopefully more, that you're able to spend with this pet. So yeah.
Ah, pets. They just have a soft spot in my heart.
They do. Carl tells Harriet admit that he's trying to spare the kids the same pain that he went through. Rachel exclaims to Carl that he had 10 wonderful years with this dog. When Carl tries to give another excuse, Rachel quickly cuts him off and advises him to think about the good this puppy did for him because it taught him about responsibility and how to love. Then the camera cuts to Mickey looking at Carl with a conventionally adorable whine. Aww. Of course, again, we get that audience awe. I wonder if the audience kept awing in succession or if it was like stock audience awe sound effect that just kept repeating.
I feel like they had to get stock audience sounds because I can't imagine that many people going aw this many times in an episode.
I mean, Rich Correll, who directed this episode, claims that the audience wasn't forced to react anyway. So, it could be that post-production, we did a little tinkling.
They had a little canned ah.
Laura tries to use her pleady daughter charm again on her dad like she did last episode about the party dance, the party/dance that is, and comes over to hold Carl's arm while saying this, "Yeah, Dad, what do you say?" And then here we go with Judy with her pleady child charm move on Carl too. And she full-on hugs his belly and exclaims what I think should be a thing on our next merch t-shirt. Please.
I would like that. A shirt with her in that cute little face saying, please, I'm down for it.
Please keep me on the show for another 5 years, please.
Oh, Judy.
Carl gives in to the pleas of his daughters, and both the rest of the family, except Harriet, are ecstatic. Did you notice, I think a good portion of the family, they were like all excited, like, yeah, Dad is keeping the dog. And then Harriet, for some reason, she was just kind of crossing her arms and giving some kind of sassy look.
Harry doesn't want that dog. And she just has not said it. And she was hoping Carl would be the one to say it because she wants to be the fun parent. Harry doesn't want that dog.
All right. So like a child needing to accept that a pet eventually passes away, Harriet needs to accept that she's not the fun parent. That's Carl's role. Harriet's role is to be the sassy, stern, like, oh, no, you didn't kind of mom. So I think when she accepts that in therapy, maybe life will be good.
Accepting our roles. Those are some things that we have to do. Radical obsessions. So hopefully she can get there.
Yeah. And by the way, to that critic, I think I read some criticism about Family Matters in regards to Jo Marie Payton being a stereotype. And yeah, look, we can say unfortunate things about stereotypes, but I also believe in the argument that, when stereotypes happen, that can often mean that there's truth behind them. And as you and I had mentioned, there's a lot of Jo Marie that reminds us of our moms. So, yeah, you could say, she's a stereotypical sassy, no, you didn't kind of black mom, but talk to us. There's some authenticity to that.
Yeah, there's authenticity to it. And then anybody who has that criticism, my only response to it is you have to remember that this show was only written by white men. So they're going off whatever reference that they have. And stereotyping is a terrible thing. It's a bad thing. We know that it is something that ruins great works. But this is also the time that we were in where the writers, none of them were black women to actually give her more of a fleshed out, expanded role. But it is still something I can relate to.
That's a very good point. Yeah. So a very weird bravo to the white men for getting Harriet to be exactly like our moms. But at the same time, there could have been a lot more layers. And that would have been interesting to see if we had black women actually writing Harriet's lines. Black women or that imaginary gay writer that you had mentioned.
Yes. If we had them in the room, it could be completely different.
Carl tells the family they can keep the dog, but Mickey will be their responsibility. Carl reminds his kids that they'll have to feed him, walk him, brush him. And I was like, you know what? With that messy ass fur brushing, that's going to be a hard chore.
That fur, if I had to brush that's a whole day excursion looking at that dog.
Yep. And then most importantly, Carl says, keep the dog away from him. Eddie tells his dad to not worry because Mickey does whatever they say. Then, of course, that the opposite happens. This is a comedic thing that we've seen before. Eddie instructs Mickey to sit. Of course, Mickey does not do that and instead decides to run up the stairs with Judy being pulled by the leash. Eddie exclaims to Mickey to sit again as he goes up the stairs as well. Carl gives Harriet and Rachel that look like, sure. Everything's under control with that dog. Upbeat music fades us into the next scene. Scene 5 fades to the living room where Eddie, Laura, and Judy walk toward the kitchen while walking Mickey by the leash, and they pass by their dad to tell him goodbye and that they're going to the mall. And I was like, how you guys going to the mall by yourself? Like by foot, by city bus? And I was also wondering for a second, are they taking Mickey to the mall with them?
That's what I thought. I'm like, why is Mickey on the leash if they're going to the mall? Are they taking him? That's what I thought. I was like, maybe they're going to walk to the mall?
I hope they don't do that stupid cruel thing that sometimes that people do where they like fucking like leash their pet to like a pole outside while they go in shopping. Leave your pet at home, or have someone dog sit your pet if they need to be dog sitted. Like that's, I don't know, it's just weird because who knows what is happening with the strangers walking by and how the dog reacts to them, how they react to the dog. Like these are the things you got to think about.
I've always hated people who do that. And it's public service announcement. If any of you are listening and you do that, I think you are personally a terrible person. I'm just going to say it in my own voice for myself. Do not leave your dog tied up outside a store. You don't know what's going to happen to your dog out there.
Yeah, because often dogs get overwhelmed by stimulation that they're not used to. So they get a lot of stimulation off of, people passing by, noises in the sky. And without the guidance and security of their owner right there with them, I mean, they could go ape shit. They could run away from that leash. God. Andrew, do me a favor. If you see a dog that's leashed up outside a store, just take the dog and give him a better home.
I probably will. I'll be Robin Hood and just take that dog with me. Like, okay, you're coming with me, dog. Unless it tries to bite me. If it tries to bite me, then it's staying there.
Okay. Understandable. You got to look out for yourself first. Carl asked the children to wait a minute so he can make sure they took care of the dog. Laura says she fed him, Eddie brushed him, and Mickey dragged Judy around the block 3 times. And my concerned real life dog ownerness came in me when I was like, maybe let's not have tiny Judy walking the dog by herself if she cannot handle his weight. Like if she cannot control that walk, that's going to be bad.
Yeah, that dog is almost as big as her. Looking at the dog in scenes, so never let a child that small carry that dog around.
For me, worst case scenario goes in my head. Oh my God, Judy's going to get pulled by the dog in the middle of the road. Both the dog and Judy are going to get hit by a bus. Like it's just, no, have someone with Judy and the dog, please.
Yes, please just, at least Laura. Have 2 people there so that leash can be held properly.
Laura would be fine, especially Eddie with his 6-footness, his fairly, I think, decent kid muscular structure. Like he could have dragged the dog. I don't know, but
did you notice he's towering over everybody in this episode? Like we finally got everybody side by side, and he's like almost 8 inches taller than Carl.
Yeah, Darius had that growth spurt pretty early on. Carl says good to all of Laura, Judy, and Eddie's dog activities that they've done. He instructs the children to just put Mickey in the kitchen and out of his way again. So we confirmed that Mickey is not going to the mall. That's good. For some reason, he's being trusted in the kitchen with, I think, no supervision, and he's not at least in a crate. Like, okay, if you put a dog in a kitchen, that's fine. Put him in a crate, put him in a situation where nothing bad is going to happen. So the Winslows are kind of setting up failure right here. They
really are. Why would you leave a dog unattended in a big kitchen?
A new dog at that, a dog that's just trying to get used to the surroundings. Like, it's dumb. It's dumb. And the kids seem to agree to Carl's orders and exit. We see Carl walk over to the center couch to have a seat so he can do his dad thing, read the newspaper. He folds it out again like he did in the false arrest episode. And then we see Steve Urkel enter from the front door with his, again, boring Eeyore turtle walk and his odd Mr. Rogers sweater over like this very big blue striped big t-shirt. He's got the Converse sneakers on. So, I guess hip nerd fashion. It's a choice.
It's fashionable. There's hope for that outfit.
So yeah, we have Steve's boring entrance, and then but you know what? What I noticed about that entrance is that the audience still laughs. Like literally, it's just Steve entering a room, and the audience is entertained.
They love him. They love them some Urkel.
Steve casually greets Carl, and we see Carl's newspaper flop down to reveal his very not happy face as he asks Steve if maybe he should be calling him Mr. Winslow instead. Steve agrees and says that's what his parents, Herb and Diane, tell him to do. But I don't think that ever happens in the 9-year history of the show. I think it's either Carl or my favorite, Big Guy.
Yeah, Big Guy or Carl. That's what we get. Big Guy, Carl, Estelle, and Harriet.
Love it. Love it. Steve switches to asking Carl where Laura is, and Carl does his best to put on a polite smile while telling Steve that Laura is gone for the day. And then Carl goes back to reading the paper. Steve bummingly says, "Oh," and then exclaims, "Oh, wait." And then he just, sits next to Carl. Newspaper flops down again to reveal Carl's not so happy facial expression. And Steve just casually throws out this question as if he just lives in the house. Want anything from the fridge?
Oh, Steve.
But I think number one is from the last episode. Got any cheese?
That line still to this day throws me whenever I hear him ask for cheese.
Are you wearing a bra? I mean, I could just like rapid fire Steve Urkel classic lines already. And he's only been in 2 episodes if we're following the original air date form.
Yes, technically.
And then Steve gets up to go toward the kitchen. Carl asks him if he's ever been fed by Herb and Diane. Steve looks back and says, yeah, they usually send me out. So again, we get more information into Herb and Diane's parental abuse. I think they're either giving this kid money for takeout every night, or they're just saying like, oh, fuck it, there's a neighbor that you keep bothering. Just go to their house to find something to eat.
Well, I mean, he was eating a mouse, so who knows? He's just trying to scrounge for food.
God, there's like a book where it's like the worst child abuse kind of book ever. And now I hear about Herb and Diane not caring about Steve and him eating a mouse. Maybe he was force-fed by Herb and Diane to eat a mouse. Maybe Steve comes from an abusive home and he's trying to mask that with his goofiness at the Winslow place.
That's what I think. I mean, Herb and Diane didn't pay the water bill, so he had to go to this house to get a shower. He's eating a mouse. They don't feed him. They just send him out. They are not good parents.
There's a reason why they never show up in the show, because I think if they did, the writers would be forced to create like a very biological dad, deep ass, serious storyline that I guess does not match the tone of Family Matters.
It doesn't. It would be the Family Matters CPS special. Like, it would be so crazy for them to have Herb and Diane on there.
God, this week on a special Family Matters. Remember when the announcer did that in the promos? This week on a special Fresh Prince.
Before we had like one of those big episodes, like the gun episode, I was like, oh, this is going to be sticky. When you hear that, you know.
We then hear a bark from the kitchen as Steve walks backwards out into the living room from the swinging door to reveal Mickey biting on Steve's shirt and not letting go as the dog growls. Steve cries out, ow, ow, stop, and backs into the Winslow piano. After the dog has let go, Steve stands on top of the piano chair. He delightfully exclaims, just very genuinely, as if he just wasn't mauled by Mickey, oh, so you got a dog.
Yeah, I love his nonchalant reaction. He's trying to just stay calm.
Steve is the best. And Urkel manages to scoot around Mickey as he jumps off the piano chair, tells Carl he's got to run. As he walks toward the front door, Steve hopes Carl will tell Laura that he'll call her, and then naively remarks about Mickey, hey, cute dog. I think he likes me.
Poor Steve. But Steve, now we know his kryptonite is dogs.
I know, and it's a kryptonite that Carl clearly loves. The camera cuts to Mickey barking. Steve makes a run for it out that front door. We see Carl delighted after Steve exits, and he tells Mickey, good dog, good boy. And then we go to scene 6, exterior day shot of Winslow House, where the words 2 weeks later come up on the screen. And then we cut to Eddie coming down the stairs into the kitchen with, I found this to be a positive point for Eddie's fashion. First of all, that fresh high top fade, loving that hair. And also he was like wearing this like rose colored suave Valentine's date kind of button down shirt.
Oh yeah, Eddie was ready for date night. He had a cute little outfit.
So there you go, Eddie. Love that instead of like strange fish swimming downwards and dotted sweatshirts.
Eddie's in that weird transition of he probably bought some of his clothes, but the other clothes are like bought by Carl and Harriet. So it's like, oh, we got to keep him looking like a kid. But Eddie's like, no, I'm doing adult fashion.
Right. And I also feel like Eddie is like that typical experimental high schooler where they may want to like bounce around between cliques to find out where they fit in. Like, maybe I'm the suave sort of like hip hop Eddie. Maybe I'm the quirky, colorful hipster fashion wearing Eddie. That's just me. Because, think about it. I mean, when you're that age, you are trying to figure out who you are.
Yeah, you just throw anything together. You try to figure out what clique you belong into.
And Eddie has exclaimed that he's had it with this dog as very Tiny Judy by comparison. Like you said, Eddie's standing over everybody. It's very clear. Tiny Judy Winslow standing right behind him. Harriet by the countertop asks what happened. Eddie shows clumped up ripped paper and exclaims to his mom to look what this dog did to his algebra homework. And automatically I thought it was a nice twist on the classic, the dog ate my homework kind of excuse that kids like
Mm-hmm. It was very good. I was like, this is good. I wish I had a dog who ate my homework.
Yeah, oh yeah, you think that would have saved you a lot of like detentions and troublemaking?
It would have just made it easier for me to not just tell people I just didn't do it because I didn't feel like it. So.
There you go. And then Harriet appropriately tells Eddie to just tell the teacher that the dog ate it. And Eddie says he can't because he used that excuse before the family had Mickey. And Andrew, here's a note. So the camera zoomed out to a wide shot of Harriet, Eddie, and Judy. Did you notice Judy? She was like doing her own exaggerated hands-on hip posture with, she's got the very 80s leggings and sneakers combo. Like, whoa, okay, Judy.
Mm-hmm. Judy was ready. She's like, you're not going to blame this dog for something it didn't do. I love Judy's sass in that moment.
Great. Harry instructs the kids to sit down and eat their breakfast and tells Eddie to not forget to feed Mickey before he goes to school. Eddie exclaims to his mom that all this dog does is eat. And then in comes Laura from the swinging door wearing the most abstract, oh my God, this fucking sweatshirt. This abstract paint paletted sweatshirt. I couldn't keep track of the colors. I was overwhelmed by it. Do you remember this? There was like pink and black and light blue, green, splatterings of orange. Like if you told a child to like take a blank white sweatshirt and to go fucking crazy with their paint collection, that's what I was getting from Laura's sweatshirt here.
Yeah, it was hideous. I immediately averted my gaze to not look at her because that thing was ugly. Like, that was now, and I love me some 90s fashion, but that was hideous.
Yeah. Speaking of 90s, I just felt like it was like, it just felt like it was behind the scenes Nickelodeon slime creators trying to figure out what color the slime should be before it becomes the green that we all know. That's what I was getting.
Yes, 100%.
And then, anyway, so Laura is stunned while holding what looked to me like a chewed off avocado or watermelon. She says she doesn't believe it because her science project is ruined. Harriet asks what happened, and Laura says she spent 2 weeks making a papier-mâché model of our solar system, and Mickey took a bite out of Pluto last night. So one, I appreciate the good callback to that 2 weeks later thing that we saw in the exterior day shot. And two, again, I'm bringing out my concerned dog owner thing. All I can think of was Mickey is swallowing stuff that he shouldn't be swallowing. I think someone should go check on him because if he did indeed swallow all this stuff that he was chewing, make him vomit it or else something bad's going to happen.
Yes, my concern was for Mickey, like, okay, so what was this paper mache? What materials did you use completely, like your binding agents and all that stuff? Then the nerd in me was looking, I was like, that's a very big Pluto. How big is this model that you built, girl? That thing is massive.
You know, so I didn't pay attention in science at all. So like I said, I looked at it and I was like, oh, that looks like a rotten black fruit of something. But hey, you're saying that it could have been smaller.
Well, she said it was Pluto. So I'm like, if you built a paper mache model of the universe and all the planets we have, the smallest planet is that big. So how big is everything else that you made, girl?
Did Mickey eat those bigger planets? That's the more concerning question.
Yeah, did he eat the planets? What are you using to string this up together? The nerd in me went crazy because I love science fairs and I built a model of the solar system for the science fair and lost. And I shouldn't have. I'm still bitter about it. But it's one of those things I'm like, Laura, what did you build? Because that thing was huge. And then how much did the dog eat of everything else?
Losing that science fair, is that unaddressed bitterness, Andrew?
It is unaddressed bitterness and trauma. And the kid who won, I still hope that you have nothing but bad luck for the rest of your life.
Damn, shots fired. Okay. Laura says she cannot believe this as she nearly stomps towards the table. She complains that you take the dog out of the street, give him a home, and this is the thanks she gets. Laura plops down her ruined science project with middle child grump as she sits between Eddie and Judy at the kitchen table. And this is when I start to go on my rant about the Winslows just being the classic stupid dog owner that just takes in a dog because they're cute without fully knowing and being patient to the responsibility. Like, think of a dog as taking in a human child. It takes work. It's not just, oh my God, you're cute. Like, know what you're getting into. And they didn't know what they were getting into.
Mm-hmm. They had no clue at all.
And then we see the familiar happy police uniform wearing Carl come into the kitchen as he exclaims to the family to come look at how genius Mickey is. We see Mickey follow Carl. Carl successfully instructs Mickey to sit, successfully instructs Mickey to speak, or bark rather, and excitingly finds the dog to be great at following these orders. Carl then tells Harriet that he sure wishes the kids would be this well behaved, and he gives a good, genuine belly laugh that gives me a chuckle, but clearly doesn't have the kids amused as the camera cuts to their stone cold faces. And, you know, look, I mean, some people could reasonably argue that being a dog owner, a lot easier than having kids.
I would never take a kid over a dog. Give me a dog any day. This is way, way easier. But I do love that we are seeing something that always happens. It's always the person in the family who doesn't want the dog that gets closest to the dog.
That's Carl. And I continue, and I start to love him gradually throughout this episode. So Carl says he thinks he'll go to work now and tells the family he'll see them later. Harriet wishes Carl a nice day with a kiss on the lips, and Carl says goodbye to Mick, as he calls him. After Carl exits through the back porch door, suddenly Mickey is a bad boy again and leaps up to the table to take bacon from a plate. All right, my dog owner self is going to get back in here. Because if my wife and I were in that room, Andrew, like, we wouldn't have the plate there on the table in the first place. Like, we would be smart enough to know, don't have that kind of stuff within a dog's reach. But even if we did, like, even if it was just something that we didn't think about, like, look at a dog, look at what they're looking at, look at what they're observing, look at how their tail is wagging, look at what their eyes are diverted to. Once you understand that chemistry within a dog, you'll know even before they leap up to the table, oh, they're about to leap up and do something bad. So, this family, they're not picking up the dog's language here.
They're not dog people. They are not figuring it out. Because if you have a pet, you know when a pet is going after your food. You know it. You can sense it. It's like a sixth sense you have.
Yeah, I don't mind. So my wife hates when a dog begs. I don't mind it. It's like, whatever, you sit and watch me eat food. That's fine. I'm not going to give it to you. But like, literally the moment that my wife sees a dog looking at her dinner from a distance, just right from the moment where they start to push one paw forward, she's like, no, stop it. No.
Mm-hmm. I am the same way with all of my dogs that I've ever had. I'm like, get out of here with that. Don't you come over here with these sad eyes like you're hungry. You just ate 3 minutes ago. Leave me alone.
And Eddie exclaims, hey, you took our bacon. Yeah, he did. No shit, Sherlock. And Harriet calls out to Mickey and almost chases after him to get the bacon back. But she clearly just doesn't do a good job because, like, she just stops at the swinging door and expects Mickey to just magically come back. Like, I think she's just like, Mickey. Like, no, the dog he ran away with his bacon. He did the deed that he wanted to do, so it's too late. Harriet, she's wearing that same gray belty dress one piece thing from like other episodes. Like, what were you know what I'm talking about? That outfit?
Mm-hmm.
What call that outfit again?
Her jumpsuit. She's wearing her jumpsuit again. And it's super cute. But this is what, the fourth time we've seen her wear it?
It's either Joe Marie loves it or the costume department is like, hey, we're a first season sitcom. We're not making that much money. We can't afford to just keep buying more outfits. So I guess we just keep repeating things.
I can see it. They just keep repeating and see what sticks. I can see that happening.
Also, Harriet got laid off not too long ago. So she, I think, is being financially responsible.
She is. She's not going out buying a bunch of different things. So I can see. I just need her to buy seasonings and things to baste a pot roast with. Invest your money in other places.
Up your black game, Harriet. Up your black mom game, please. And Harriet calls out to Mickey. Rachel calls to Harriet just as loudly as she comes down the stairs into the kitchen. And we have like a back and forth that happens for a little bit. Like, Harriet, Rachel, Harriet. And then Harriet's finally like, what? Rachel asks Harriet if she's seen her workout suit. Harriet says it's in the laundry room. And then goes into the living room to search for Mickey in the kitchen. Rachel goes into the laundry room and then lets out, wow, the most convincing female horror movie scream that I've ever heard in my life. I can't do it because Zoom is going to cut out the audio of it. But Rachel could have clearly been on like Dawn of the Dead with that scream.
Oh yeah, she was a scream queen at that moment. Like that scream was blood curdling.
And then an emotionally stunned Rachel comes out of the laundry room to try and make sense of the ripped up workout suit that she's holding. Harriet runs back into the kitchen and asks Rachel what happens. Eddie from the table says that it looks like Mickey struck again. As Harriet physically looks through Rachel's workout suit, she says, well, he's a dog. What do you expect? And bitter me was like, Harriet, he's a dog who clearly hasn't been trained well. And even if there's a learning curve, it's not that hard to close your laundry room door. One. So close your laundry room door. That's one. And two, you could easily put your clothes in a place where a dog cannot reach it. Like, I don't know, put it in the upper part of your closet toward the ceiling. I don't know. Like, there's ways to avoid a dog from eating your stuff.
Take your dog for a walk. This is the sign that this dog has built up energy. Take him for a walk.
Yeah, there was like a Washington Post story that I talked about about on the radio where it's encouraging people to, walk their dogs more instead of just taking them out to the backyard because that stimulation, when dogs, sometimes when they chew up things that they're not supposed to chew up, it's out of the fact that they need stimulation and they're losing their mind. So the little things like taking them out for regular walks, and even if, you can only limit them to the backyard, like my wife and I sometimes do, have them out there on a nice day, have them run around and play with each other. If you have more than one dog, like wear them out so that they don't do things like chewing up your clothes.
Get them out of the house. Just like kids, they need stimulation. Get them stimulated out there.
And then Laura asks her mom, isn't that your new silk blouse? When she notices Rachel emotionally stunned by another ripped article of clothing. Harriet rips the ruined silk blouse from Rachel's hands to take a look and then decides she's had it up to here. And she says, that is it. That dog is out of here. Harriet slams the silk blouse down on the countertop and screams Mickey's name as she runs toward the living room looking for him. And then we have music that plays to fade us into the next scene. And I'm just sympathizing with Mickey. I'm like, poor guy, because it's not the dog's, like the dog can't do anything about it. Like if a dog gets stuck with a family that's clearly not ready for it, it's like the dog has to suffer. The dog will have to get taken away somewhere.
Yeah, the dog suffers in this bigger than anything. It's so cute to be like, oh, it's such a cute dog. Let's take it in. But if you don't know anything about dogs, don't do that. Don't do it.
Absolutely. We go to scene 7, fade to living room front door, while Officer Carl Winslow comes in to happily greet the family and ask where Mickey is. Carl gives the usual kissy dog noise to get Mickey's attention and tells the family to look at what he got the dog. Carl opens the package she's holding to reveal a Frisbee. Carl claims it'll help Mickey develop great eye-snout coordination. Or, as I thought to myself, it's just a simple fun activity for a dog, Carl. I don't even know if that's a term. Eye-snout coordination?
I doubt it. I hope it's not a term. Because, for a dog, wherever their eyes are pointed, their snout's going to be pointed. So, I don't know.
Okay, Carl Winslow logic. All right, well, as Officer Winslow eagerly looks around for Mickey, Harriet calls out to him and tells him to sit down because they need to talk. This is where I begin to get really pissed off by this fucking family. Carl looks very emotionally concerned by this and asks why and what is wrong. Because, he's probably thinking that Mickey died. Oh my God, another dog left me. Harriet says she has something to share about Mickey. Carl sadly exclaims, oh no, is he sick? Is he lost? Harriet says Mickey is fine and in the garage. Carl understandably asks why Mickey is in the garage. And a concerned dog owner likes to know that too, because I'm thinking, okay, Winslow family, it's fucking January in Chicago. It's probably freezing as hell in that garage. Please take him out and bring him into a warm house.
Yes, just because a dog has fur doesn't mean he can be out in the cold.
Yeah, seriously. And Rachel continues to, Rachel, of course, making me angry here. She's just enabling more and more of this family's naive stupidity toward dog ownership as she explains to Carl that Mickey's destructive. He's eating clothes and furniture and sporting equipment, and she doesn't like the way he looks at little Richie. All right, so here's my rant on Rachel. So one, let's consider the fact that Mickey is in a new environment he's not quite familiar with, so he may be acting the way he does based on that. And we can also consider, number 2, that there's that like a certain family, which is the Winslows, hasn't taken the time and patience to train him or maybe even to do a background check. I think often when you take in a pet from a shelter, or they took him off the street, but I don't know. I just feel like there has to be some way that the Winslows could have made an effort to look into Mickey's background, look into his breed. Like the internet wasn't quite fully formed, but there are books in the library. There are resources where you could figure out Mickey's breed and what he's likely to be as a personality. And that could have informed your decision on whether or not to keep him before you actually decided to take him in. And then as for how he looks at Richie, like Mickey could either be afraid of Richie because they haven't gotten acquainted, or he simply isn't comfortable around little babies. But again, if you did some background checking, that could have made the difference. So there you go. That's my gentle rant.
I 100% agree. All y'all had to do is take him to the vet. Because I get the feeling that this dog has not been taken to the vet since they took this dog in. And if it's a stray dog, why not take it to the vet to find out if it has any diseases, if it needs treatment for anything? You could have found out everything you needed there. So all these reactions that they're having to a dog just being a dog, it's because y'all don't know how to handle a dog.
Yeah. And actually, you know what? I'm glad you brought up the vet because I literally forgot about that. Like, bring him to a place where my wife Tony works at. Like, the vet if anything, will let you know what to expect with this kind of dog. All right. So we go to Carl telling Rachel what she's saying doesn't sound like his dog. He claims Mickey is a sweet, gentle, playful little puppy. As Carl has a mopey face while sitting on what I believe is it that ugly Pepto-Bismol seat that we want gone immediately.
That's where he's at.
But never goes away until maybe later on in the series. I don't know. Harriet tells Carl that around him, Mickey is Benji, and around the rest of the family, he's Cujo. Did you have to look up who Benji and Cujo were like I did, or did you already know the references?
No, I love Cujo. Cujo is in a fantastic movie. It is delicious. I'm going to tell everybody to watch it if you like a good horror movie. But I knew who both dogs were.
Okay. So I didn't know. So for reference for me and for, you listening, if you don't know. So Benji refers to a fictional canine character created by Joe Camp, featured in several films. I think notably there was a 1974 movie that you really saw Benji in his truest form. Small golden mixed breed dog with a knack for being in the right place at the right time, usually to help someone overcome a problem. And then Cujo, pretty much the opposite. Based on the Stephen King horror novel from 1981 about a rabid Saint Bernard. Does this Saint Bernard end up killing people?
Yes. Oh, yeah. He is the killer. Cujo. Oh, you got to see Cujo, John. Cujo's good.
Oh, okay. So that's one of the many Stephen King books that's been made into movies?
The book is good. The movie's good. Both times you're going to watch it, you'll enjoy it. I mean, I won't spoil the ending, but if you don't like to see violence, then I would suggest reading the book before watching the movie.
Okay. Good to know. All right. Carl rightfully says that Mickey will grow out of whatever behavior the rest of the family is saying that he does. And he's currently adjusting to his new surroundings. I'm with Carl on this one. This is where Carl becomes the superhero to me because, one, for stating that reason that Mickey is adjusting, but also keep in mind, unlike the rest of the family, Carl has actually taken the time to train Mickey. He taught Mickey how to sit. He's taught Mickey how to stay. So through the way Mickey interacts with Carl, you see the potential. Like, hey, if you take the time with this dog, if you train him, if you tell him what's right from wrong, he could become a good dog. But no, the rest of the family is just, this dog is cute and we'll just expect them to be harmless all the time without doing anything with him. No, it's like a human child. You have to tell them how to go about in the world.
You do. You know what Carl did? Carl really set up his family for failure with that report card thing, all these other things. You're forcing them to get into it. And the kids are like, oh, this is what's going to happen with the dog. Carl, you kind of created the situation. Now, he was very smart. He was very intelligent when he said, because he was right. But Carl, you still created this.
Oh, damn. All right. We're going to put the blame on Carl again.
I love Carl for everything he says because he is right, but Carl helped create this situation. This could have been stopped at point blank if they had first said, if we're going to have this dog, we all need to understand what it is to have dog.
I get what you're saying. So you're saying that Carl should have made it clear that, if I'm training this dog, if I'm going to teach this dog to do things, everybody's going to have to make the same effort. But instead what Carl did, he did the important training stuff and just said to the rest of the family, just, feed him, walk him, brush him. And even though I'm the one training him and he knows not to mess with me, sure, he'll still be behaved with the rest of the family. No, the dynamic is totally different. So yes, I understand the Carl blame. I understand your sigh of way to go, Carl.
Yeah, he gets a way to go to Carl for this one.
Yep. All righty. Harriet claims that Mickey is a big dog, as if that's an excuse at all. She continues on that Mickey is too big to be pent up in the house all day and needs room to run and play. You know what? You live in a decent neighborhood with sidewalks. Take him out for walks. Let him run around your backyard. I see the backyard. We see the backyard right by the back porch. So none of that crap, Harriet.
Yeah, all you gotta do is take your dog for a walk. Just one walk.
Literally, it was National Walk Your Dog Day the other day. There's a holiday around the importance of walking your dog. Oh my God. All right, Carl, like the good dog daddy he is, exclaims that he does take Mickey to the park. Rachel counters that by telling Carl he's an active outdoor dog who needs to live in the country and not in the city. I call bullshit on that because, again, the background check and going to the vet, if that is indeed true, that could have been something to find out in advance, not just now.
Yes, you could have found this out in advance. And then whenever I hear people say, oh, he's going to a farm, y'all killed that dog. That is what goes in my head. That dog is dead. There's no farm for dogs out there that you're sending this dog to in Chicago. Y'all just want Mickey gone and you're just creating things now.
Yeah, that there is a negative stigma around that. Oh, where's that cow going? Guys, I'm going to going to take him to the farm. Like, there might be a Big Mac featuring that cow the next day on your plate.
Oh, that cow is going to be very juicy at that farm.
Oh, boy. Carl gets up and clearly is out of whack from this news when he stammeringly says, we'll buy the house and sell a farm. And I am with Carl on this one. I'm like, you know what? Leave this fucking idiotic family. You and Mickey live a happy life together in somewhere in rural Illinois on a farm.
Yes, live in rural Illinois on a farm. And then once Mickey passes, you'll have unaddressed trauma again and unaddressed trauma from your marriage that you broke up because of a dog.
This is true because Carl, I mean, if he doesn't have the advice of someone like Harriet around him, then yeah, he's pretty much a walking average stubborn man.
I can see the spiraling out of control very easily.
Yeah. Oh my God, my dog passed away. And because of that, all dogs are stupid. I'm Carl Winslow for president.
That's exactly what we get.
Harriet tells Carl to come on and face the reality of their stupidity here. Carl asks if everybody really feels this way. The family nods. Eddie says, yep. Laura says, definitely. Carl concedes and says he'll find Mickey a nice home and insists to the family that he be the one to break the news to him. And then Carl gives the line that this idiotic family deserves before exiting to the kitchen. You know, I didn't want to mention this, but he's not crazy about the rest of you. I love that line.
That was very good.
Yeah, because, you know, maybe Mickey is probably thinking, Jesus, like the rest of this Winslow family, too easy for me. Like I get to run around with bacon, even though the mother calls my name, I don't answer and she doesn't punish me for it in any way. No trained consequences, nothing. All right, sure. I'm smarter than this family.
Yeah, but Carl has 10 years of experience with the dog. And he's like, oh, I can't get over on Carl. So let me like friendly up to him.
Yeah, Carl has that benefit of the 10 years. All right, we go to scene 8, exterior night shot of Winslow house. Cut to back porch where we see sad scene alert, by the way. Sad scene alert. Yeah, this is gonna get to the heartstrings, I'm sure.
It does.
All right, so we come to the back porch where Mickey with an M as in Mary, adorably sitting and casually panting on that swinging bench. So not in the garage anymore, I guess, like Harriet said, but who cares? I loved looking at Mickey in this split-second moment because the dog looked like he was living his best fucking life. And, you know, in comes Carl to break some really sad news that, hey, best fucking life, dog, you got to live that life somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, any dog that's brave enough to get up on a swinging chair, I'm not getting rid of this dog. This dog is a genius.
He has courage. Carl walks over to Mickey, gives him a look. Mickey does a cute thing where his mouth is closed for a second and then goes back to panting as he looks at Carl. Why the audience didn't awe that moment, I don't know.
I find it to be cute when dogs do it in general. So I expected like an ah, and we didn't get that.
All right, so we already started the sappy piano background music as Carl sadly tells Mickey that he guesses they got to say goodbye. Carl sits down next to Mickey when he senses Mickey is... Did you say on?
No, my phone just vibrated.
Oh, I was like... I thought Andrew either said or farted. I was like, what the hell was that sound?
My fart in disbelief of what's happening to Mickey.
You have an emotionally damaged fart right now.
I do. My emotional fart is releasing trauma.
And that trauma smells bad. All right, here we go. So, sappy piano music comes in. Carl sadly tells Mickey that he guesses they got to say goodbye. Carl sits down next to Mickey when he senses Mickey is not delighted to hear this news and claims the news is hard for him too. Mickey does a little whine and lays his head on Carl's lap as the camera closes in and, you know, that gosh darn adorable face. My God, I don't want to hear this news.
That poor dog. I just felt so bad for Mickey in this moment.
Yeah. Carl says to Mickey that he made a few phone calls and found him a really nice home in the country. Mickey will have somebody to take him hunting, fishing. He'll have a lot of space to dig holes and chase rabbits. So one, I fear that Mickey will be afraid by the sound of a hunting rifle. I never liked the idea of a dog accompanying a hunter. That's just me. And two, I was like, leave those rabbits alone. Because I've seen in pop culture and movies and whatnot, the image of rabbits being killed and like strung up like a black man in Jim Crow era.
I had a beagle and I loved my little beagle, Boston. And he was cute. And people would always be like, do you ever go out hunting with him? And I'm like, no, I don't want to see him viciously or like eviscerate an animal out here. I love his cuteness.
Let all animals live if we can have the choice. I mean, obviously, you know, when we have meat on our plates for us meat eaters, It's a different story, but I don't know. When I see a live animal in the flesh, last thing I want to see is that animal being trampled by my dog.
Exactly. I don't want to see something with a cute face like coming back dead. And like, I would be so traumatized. I couldn't do it.
And Carl continues on with the country living fantasy and tells Mickey he'll have a whole forest to chew on. Carl asks Mickey if that all sounds okay. Camera cuts to Mickey's face on Carl's lap. And this moment clearly is set up to make us cry because Mickey was just getting used to the Winslow house and now he has to go. Carl gets up to go back into the house and we see Mickey following him and giving a little whine. Carl turns around to notice Mickey behind him, leans down to his level and tells the big guy that he really is going to miss him too. And it's been nice knowing him. Carl gives an affectionate hug to Mickey's head as we fade into the next scene. The price of being a dog owner. These moments, they really get to you. I mean, I own 4 of them, and you said you owned a dog in the past?
Well, I had Boston, and then, of course, I got Hank at my parents' house.
Scene 9, music from previous scene gradually fades into quiet in this next scene, where we see a depressed Carl enter the living room front door in more casual clothes. As he walks toward the center of the living room, it's revealed the rest of this god-awful family is there with the same clothes that they've been wearing. So it's the same night as the previous scene. Mm-hmm. And, I noticed that Carl must have changed out of his policeman work clothes into something a little bit more casual. Thankfully, something that's not, looking like he's a European player that's about to play football.
Right? Carl and his casual wear, he's got some interesting choices.
Carl Winslow Zito goes for the goal. All right. Anyway, Carl confirms to them that he just dropped Mickey off at his new home. Harriet asks how it went, and Carl says there was a lot of whimpering and sniffling. Rachel responds with a question I'd expect her to ask. Again, here's her role to break the tension. Yeah, but how did Mickey take it?
Now you care about Mickey.
Right, Rachel, tisk tisk. Carl guesses that Mickey took it okay, but guarantees that the dog is going to miss him and he sure is going to miss the dog. The family huddles around Carl in support at the center couch as Laura admits to her dad that he was right when he said that having a pet is a big responsibility. And I was like, shut up, Laura. Like, I don't have any sympathy for that at this point because you have adults in Harriet and Rachel that should have been smart enough to lead the way and say, okay, let's learn about this dog first before we figure out if he's a right match or not. Because I've learned this from being married to a vet tech. As much as you want to see every dog have a home and you want to give the dog your perfect home, dogs, based on their personalities, their preferences, their stimulation things, they have certain specificities as far as what home is best for them.
They do. You have to understand. Like, I've always wanted a husky, but I live in an apartment. I don't have outdoor space. It would not be a smart idea for me to get a husky breed, knowing that they need space, they need activity, they need attention. So you've got to find the dog that fits you and you fit that dog. It's not just about, oh, it's cute, let me bring it in.
Yeah, huskies, instead of your apartment in Rochester, New York, they should be pulling a snow sled with Cuba Gooding Jr. sitting on it in a Disney movie from the late 90s, early 2000s. What was that, Snow Dogs?
I think that was Snow Dogs. Yeah, that was Snow Dogs.
Yeah, that was my first introduction to Cuba Gooding Jr., by the way. Not Jerry Maguire, not radio. It was Snow Dogs. And then I worked my way through like, oh, okay. And then he was also in Boys in the Hood. Okay.
See, I got Boys in the Hood, Cuba Gooding Jr. first.
Oh.
I got Boys in the Hood, Cuba Gooding Jr. first. I don't know if it was for you this way in your family, but in my family, across the entire spectrum, my mom and dad's side, they felt that all of the boys had to watch Boys in the Hood because it was a specific moment in Black history that we all needed to be made aware of.
So they wanted to give you a reality check, like, oh, this is what life as a Black man could be like. Because I guess South Central LA living applies to everywhere else in the country for Black people.
That's what it was. They were like, you're going to watch Menace to Society, you're going to watch Boys in the Hood, and this is what it is to be a Black man in America. And I was like, we don't live any of this.
Yeah, it's different. It's different based on where you live. I've seen Menace to Society. Boys in the Hood pops up on Netflix. I have to admit, I've never seen that movie yet. And I will make it a point to see it because I feel like, according to your family, it is my rite of passage as an African American.
It is your rite of passage. You've got to watch it. I just say put on Boys in the Hood, set it off, then Menace to Society, and then wrap up that whole movie day with Don't Be a Menace.
Okay, yeah, because Don't Be a Menace, that's a parody of like pretty much all those movies from the Wayans people. But those first two options, damn, you really want to have me like fucking depressed and bitter at like white America, huh?
I mean, just watch them. You'll make it through it. But those are like the movies that you have to have in your repertoire for just a little bit. Like you got to have them just in there, just like get little references from.
A little seasoning, a little spice of Boys in the Hood and set it off to really make the pot roast that Harriet should have made.
Yes, exactly. And then, I mean, if you really want to fancy it up, you can throw in soul food there on another day.
Now, I've seen soul food. Don't get me started on soul food. I've seen that. Big Mama all day, every day.
Big Mama. I have so much commentary about that movie.
Well, in the future, we have to recap soul food. I think it'll be nice to see it all these years later. Eddie tells his dad at least he found Mickey a good home, and Judy follows up by telling dad that at least he still has the family. Yeah, the stupid doesn't deserve to have a dog family. In comes Steve from the front door to greet You know what? I think if Mama Winslow was in this episode, it might make a difference. I think Mama Winslow would have added wisdom to the rest of this family about what they're getting into with a dog. But no, Mama Winslow had to be in Croatia with her girlfriends.
Yeah, they're out there being passport girls, having a good time. And if she was in this episode, I guarantee that dog would not have stayed past the moment the kids brought it in the house.
Oh, you think Mama Winslow wouldn't have had it at all?
I don't think she would have. I think she would have been like, get that dog out of here because y'all don't know how to take care of this dog. So I feel like she would have immediately been like, until y'all can prove you can handle a dog, you're not getting a dog.
Okay, much needed honesty from Mama Winslow because she's lived a life. She's lived a life. She knows when people are being fucking stupid.
And she knows the Queen of England. The Queen of England has tons of dogs. So she's obviously somebody who's going to be comfortable with dogs. So I feel like she would have schooled them and be like, no, if we're getting this dog, you're going to do it the right way and not just come in here and say it's cute and let him stay.
Yep, I forgot about that. Elizabeth, when she was alive, she was known to be a dog lover. There you go. I love that. And then in comes Steve Urkel from the front door to greet everyone while holding some dark blue shopping bag. Carl says upon Urkel's arrival that he could have sworn he locked that door. And all we got to do is play back the tape because maybe you saw it differently. But I was like, when I saw Carl walked in depressed, I don't remember him locking anything. He was too in his feelings to lock the door.
He did not touch that door lock at all.
And then despite the visual fact, Steve claims that Carl did indeed lock the door, and he just proceeded to make his own Winslow house key, like the adorable trespasser stalker he is. And Carl asks Steve, what does he want? Steve makes me laugh with this line as he really animates his face into the creepy, smiley pervert expression. You mean besides Laura?
So creepy.
But it makes me laugh. How does a creepy guy make me laugh at the same time? How are you tickling me and yet doing unkind things to me at the same time?
You know what? He hasn't crossed the line yet to assault. He hasn't done that yet, but stalking, I feel like it's like a little lighter of a love tap where you're like, okay, this kid's just annoying, but he's not a threat yet.
Yet. Underline yet. All right, Steve then walks over to sit between Laura and Judy on the center couch and then just ends up pushing Judy from the couch completely to be next to Laura. Oh, the symbolism here, because Judy's disappearance, one could argue, Urkel's stardom just kind of made a big contributor to that.
Kind of eclipsed her out the way and just said, get out, Judy. Now, this would never happen in a real Black family. They would not let their daughter just get pushed, especially the youngest one, by some dude that they don't like.
Harriet would have done something. Harriet should have done something.
Oh, yeah. Harriet would have probably yanked him off the couch and like, get out of my house.
Jo Marie Payton, I think there's 2 or 3 times where I've read articles where she has talked about how very not happy she was at the disappearance of Judy, like just with no explanation. Because like that's the baby of the family. Like, why would you do that? Of all people, the baby in the family. Literally, Jo Marie Payton said that the only thing that would keep her away from a Family Matters reunion or a reboot is if Jamie Foxworth was not there. That's what she said.
Well, maybe we'll get something in the works. Fingers crossed.
Maybe.
Give us Judy's story. Judy Matters. That's what we're calling it.
Love it. So Steve leans over Laura toward Carl to tell him that he noticed he got rid of his dog and that was a wise choice. But knowing how important it is for every man to have a pet, Steve brought him a gift that he physically reveals from the bag he brought. It's an ant farm. Carl clearly pretends to be excited as he holds this ant farm and becomes confused when he shakes the farm and doesn't notice any ants in there. Steve claims that you have to send off for the ants, but to not worry because he knew that this was an emergency and brought some from his personal supply. What does that mean, send off for ants? Do you know?
You've got to like request them to send you the ant or the ant eggs is what I'm assuming.
So what he has right now is temporary practice ants and then he'll get the real ones soon?
So like you get like your ant farm and I think you just have to order the ants that come with it. But I feel like Steve, because he says he brought him some from his collection, Steve has multiple ant farms or something.
I mean, Yeah, he eats mice and has multiple ants. Lines right up with his character.
It really does. And ant farms are gross.
I bet they are. Steve then brings out a leftover Tupperware container of ants from the bag and exclaims that there's 5,000 in there, including a pregnant queen. And just as Steve comes closer to tell Carl more, he drops the ant container, and then they all just spill out onto the coffee table, and the family screams in horror all at once, like you would expect. Runs behind the couch as we get a close-up shot of the ants running and walking around on the table. Steve cries out. Oh, Steve. He cries out to the ants, "Oh no, Your Majesty, Your Majesty." We get a wide shot of the family and Steve in this crazy predicament as music plays and credits come up to end episode 13 of season 1, Man's Best Friend.
I'm scratching my skin because before we started recording, I watched the episode again, and those ants crawling on the table just makes my skin crawl. So that's the reason why I'm scratching. If anybody's like, "Whoa, why is he scratching so much?"
Oh my God.
I hate it so much.
Yeah. If you want, I could go back to 1989 and stomp on all those ants for you with my shoe.
Ugh, I just don't even want to see the ants. Just get a lighter and some hairspray and make a flamethrower. Just blast them out of here.
All righty. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Closing thoughts for this episode. I had a really great time watching it. It was like a fun, lighthearted episode, but we do get this interaction with the dog that I wish was addressed a little bit better. I do feel like it was a little bit rushed how they brought Mickey in, gave us this really quick, unfleshed out story for him, but then had like a emotional but come to Jesus ending where it was like, okay, we're not going to just throw this dog out on the street. Let's go find him a home. But I do wish that we got like a little bit more of a fleshed out episode with it.
Rest in peace to the dog that played Mickey. Very good dog training by whoever trained this dog in this episode. Unless Mickey is a super being, I would assume that he's dead by now. So rest in peace.
Mickey's probably gone, but the dog trainer did amazing. That was one of my things that I was like, this dog is perfect. It did not do anything that seemed like it was out of character for whatever they had to practice with this dog and the trainer. So that was amazing.
Yeah. And their director, Rich Corral, seemed to have an effortless good time working with the dog, working with kids, because, kids and animals, they could be quite a task when you're trying to direct a performance. Listen to our interview with Rich Corral if you haven't had a chance to, and you'll get to see why he becomes a great reoccurring director in the history of Family Matters. All right. Subscribe, rate, review, wherever you listen to podcasts. The Delicious Recap, Family Matters. The Delicious Recap at gmail.com is where you could send your questions, comments, concerns, and feedback. You can follow us on a lot of social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, YouTube, all at Family Matters Rewatch Pod. Our next episode we're recapping, Baker's Dozen, Season 1, Episode 14. Original air date, January 12th, 1990. I feel like a part of this episode is featured in the opening credit sequence, either later on or currently.
I gotta take a look because I don't remember this episode. I haven't actually rewatched this one yet.
Because I'm getting the image of Carl and the family dancing while they're like baking something in the kitchen and there's like flour on them. Carl is wearing an apron. He's wearing a chef's hat.
I remember something of that in an opening.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to watch it. We're going to talk about this.
We'll see you then. Andrew, how can people follow you?
They can follow me. Okay, so first, I've heard it. I'm back on Facebook. So you guys can find me on Facebook. Just look for AJ Vandertunt. Well, I think it's Andrew Vandertunt on Facebook. But just search Vandertunt. If you search Vandertunt, I'm officially the only Vandertunt that is out there. Nobody else uses the name. So on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, if you just search Vandertunt, you will find me. Ooh, that rhymed.
Bravo to you for that rhyming game. I'm glad that you're on Facebook because according to this podcast collective meeting that we've been a part of with fellow rewatch podcasters, a lot of our listeners are older and use Facebook more as their social media of choice. So it's probably a wise choice that you are back on Facebook trying to weave through the bitter politics and find the joy in it.
Yes, I will find the joy in Facebook, especially because I don't follow anybody anymore. I went through and I unfollowed everything. So I was like, okay, now I'll start with a fresh slate. Maybe my page will not be bad. But again, y'all, don't message me on there. Instagram, TikTok, that'll be the best way to still reach me. Facebook is simply going to be just for the podcast stuffs. but not for messages.
How about you take us out?
All right. So this was a great episode. It was fun. It was tasty. And we have to let this deliciousness ring.